A high-pitched cry for help, but problematic under /Lana on AO3. Chapter 21, Leash Kid. The next couple of days were delightful. Aizawa was allowed to work from home. Aizawa was allowed to work on the case from home. That meant more time spent as a family, but more time being careful that Izuku wouldn't use his computer without permission, especially after Shouta found the history of his previous research. Mike was ecstatic to have his husband at home more, and for the extra help, even though their little one made it his mission in life to not be a burden. On Monday, the family of 3 had another visit with Nezu in their plans, and even if Aizawa promised not to hold a grudge for the misunderstanding, he was sure as hell he would not keep true to his words. This time, the visit had some heavy subjects to discuss, so they planned on leaving Izuku with Auntie Midnight. They already had some things to discuss: the misunderstanding, the court counseling, and now to recover the goodbye box from the police legally. But something new appeared suddenly. The subject had just recently come to light when, after months of Izuku not going to school, a missing child report was made. The person in charge of it was named Mitsuki Bakugo, a mother from the school Izuku used to attend. The worst thing, they lived a block away from his old home. Shouta was livid. Absolutely livid. The kid had been missing school for 3/4 of the year now, and even before that, he remembered noticing the kid looked bad during his night visits. He was probably neglected for years now, malnourished and abused for at least 2 years and missing for 1. And she noticed now? In years, no one had moved a finger for this poor kid's well-being. Izuku had to wait for a complete stranger to notice him walking alone every night to do something. He had to rely on a pro healer that just casually saw beyond his random night strolls. What if he didn't notice? What if he kept living like that? What would have happened then? Maybe he wouldn't even be alive now. Suzu, do you know someone named Bakugo? Mike asked in casual voice during dinner. The kid froze in his place, going as far as to stop chewing completely, looking at his lap nervously. That was an obvious red flag that none of the adults missed. A lady by the name of Mitsuki Bakugo was asking to meet you, said Shouta, his voice firm yet soft. Do you want to meet her? Izuku meditated on his options and quickly got to the conclusion that meeting his auntie would mean seeing Katsuki, but he would probably behave if she was there, right? He ended up nodding to the offer, even if the couple didn't look convinced at all. Truth be told, the blonde was hoping that his little listener would say no, and that would be it. The police would deal with her, and that was that. But he would never deny Izuku his pass, and it was up to him to meet those people. He would never leave them alone, though. Aizawa was going to meet with her anyways. Just didn't expect him to agree, too. The woman was insistent in verifying Izuku's well-being, and Shouta thought that she was definitely a hypocrite. The meeting ended up being the very next day due to her insistence. They decided on a public space, none of the parties involved being comfortable enough to bring the other to their home. The place where they met was a very nice coffee shop next to a playground to keep Izuku distracted in case anything went south. Because, well, the pro hero was already planning on saying a thing or two. They got there, and a couple consisting of an ash-blonde woman and a dark-haired man were sitting there. A kid, Izuku's age, sitting impatiently next to them, with a weird backpack on. Oh great, a leash kid. My name is Shouta Aizawa, and this is my husband, Yamada Hisashi, said Aizawa, extending a hand in a cordial way. We are currently the ones looking after Izuku. I assumed you are the Bakugo family. What did you want to meet for? Straight and to the point. Sometimes he liked to introduce them that way. That way in which people reacted to an openly gay marriage couple was always a good indicator to show how the conversation would go. She looked more taken aback to the looking after Izuku part, though. He would give her half a point for that. At least she wasn't a complete asshole. Yes, we are. I just She looked at Izuku, who was hiding behind Shota's pants. We wanted to see for ourselves that Izuku was safe and sound, she said, regaining her confidence posture once again. Izuku, darling, come here, say hi to Auntie. She bent down a bit, frowning when Izuku looked at her other kid and refused to move. Well, at least say hi. Her voice sounded doubtful once more. I haven't seen you in such a long time. Don't you miss Auntie? Izuku waved, uncomfortably, but still with a bit of a smile on his face. Still not moving from the place, not saying a word. Hey, who's the homeless guy? Said the little blonde kid, watching Shouta, who just rolled his eyes. His mother sighed heavily, as if used to his misbehavior. Want to say hi to Katsuki instead, or did the cat catch your tongue? At that cue, he hit even more, Katsuki coming down from his chair and finally watching Izuku, and an odd and mildly annoyed smile in his face. What the hell? We ask kindly to watch your language, added Shouta in a second, the woman shooting daggers to him. I'm sorry, he's been a little shy lately. Mike interrupted the awkward silence. And with the mutism and all, I don't suppose any of you know sign language? Deku, why are you skipping school? He yelled again, this time growing closer to Izuku, something that neither of his responsible adults appreciated. Let's play. You'll be the villain again. Hurry up, or I'll beat you up, loser. He screamed again, disregarding any looks from the adults. I told you to be nice, she yelled, equally loud as him, smacking him in the back of the head. Don't call him that. In the same instant, Mike picked Izuku up before the little demon child could get to him, already aware that his intent was to drag him to the playground. He looked at the confused kid, whose confusion turned into anger, small explosions coming from his hand. Hey, give him back! He, kind of, threatened. You can play with Hobo. Before the kid could say another word, he was left speechless when his quirk stopped working, looking at his hands like they had disappeared in front of his very eyes. I will stop you right there, Shouta said, his voice lost all sign of softness and his air floating around him. I will not allow you to call my son names, nor to do as you wish as long as I'm here. He blinked, redirecting his tired eyes to the mom. I'm sorry, ma'am, but if you cannot control your kid, we are leaving. They're just kids. And what is with all that? What did you do? She looked at him and then at her son, who once again tried to use his explosive quirk, this time to make sure it was still there. Who do you think you are anyways? Sign language? And your quirk? Her kid went running behind her, holding a middle finger to the pro-hero, even as he looked slightly terrified of him. We are in fact pro-heroes, and that right there is illegal quirk usage, he said, pointing to the kid. And you hitting him and screaming is clearly not improving his bad manners. Pro-heroes, she said, looking suspicious. Look, they're just kids, and the little brat sometimes needs to get things straightened. You are no one to tell me how to raise my kids, even if you now decide to play family with Izuku. He already has a family. What happened to Inko and Hisashi? You just expect us to believe you're a good samurai? Before Shouta got all on her face about her holiness, Mike intervened, Izuku resting in one arm and hero license in the other, wearing a fake smile that was rarely seen in him. We are in fact pro-heroes. He showed her his license, not letting her grab it. And as you see, Izuku is at the moment a lot more comfortable with us than with your family. May I ask, when was the last time you saw him? Because, to put it nicely, he was in a very rough situation long before we were lucky enough to bring him home to us. When she opened her mouth, nothing came out. He continued. What is worse, it looks like you didn't even know about his selective mutism, nor did you realize he needed help before. May I, while we are here, recommend some quirk counseling for your kid and family therapy to improve the way with you and your child. Have a nice day. Honey, I will wait with Izuku on the playground, alright? And as if he didn't just offend 2 generations, he went his way to play with little Izuku, who was obviously distressed about the exchange. Mitsuki was about to open her mouth, red with a mix of embarrassment and anger, but was stopped in her tracks as a hand rested on her shoulder. Her husband, who hadn't said anything beyond formalities, looked at her like begging for something, picking up an angry Katsuki himself, and addressing the remaining hero. I'm sorry about this. I personally was aware of Katsuki's and Izuku's relationship falling apart, but I didn't know it was this bad. My apologies. He bowed a bit, as much as the kid in his arms allowed him. If it is possible, I would like to check up on little Izuku another time. Alone, maybe? We wish to be there for him now, even if we weren't back then. We were good friends with his mother, and we couldn't see past that. We are sorry. Aizawa sighed. The man seemed a lot less heated than his wife and kid. Understanding the situation immediately, he calmed down a bit. Although he fully intended to see the extent of the bullying Izuku had obviously suffered, it was no good pressuring a parent who didn't pay any attention to the issue before, nor to a kid who was used to getting things his way. They probably hadn't even been in contact with Inko in a long time, too. There was no information to be gathered there, and he knew that. That is always up to Izuku, he stated. But I am willing to let him choose another date when things have calmed down. Regarding Izuku's parents, he looked at Katsuki, who was avoiding all looks, and finally decided to simplify things for his sake. After all, he was still a child. They were deemed unfit to take care of him. He settled with that, gaining a startled look from both. And I know it sounds harsh, but please consider Quirk counseling and family guidance. For his sake, at least. With those parting words, he nodded off and gave the man his cell phone, wanting to keep it to himself, and for emergencies, as he was still a pro-hero. That was probably one of the most uncomfortable talks he had in a while, but at least he got something out of it. He now knew something else he had to ask for when they met with Nezu. Aldera had to have some kind of camera footage, right? That would be more than enough to bring them down. Hell, if his experience told anything about how kids behaved in school towards Izuku, he might as well force some kids into counseling. It was the least they deserved. And to be expelled, obviously. I really liked this chapter. The meeting went on how I expected it to go. You know, I expected Mitsuki to be Mitsuki, I expected Bakugo to be Bakugo. I really enjoyed the fact that they stood their ground, they ended the meeting, and they went to comfort Izuku. I love how Bakugo's a leash kid. Can we talk about that? Bakugo being a leash kid. That's fucking hilarious. I'm sorry, that tracks. That makes sense. I love how Aizawa did not let it slide that Mitsuki physically hit Bakugo. I know hitting is something that many parents do towards their children. I genuinely don't think that it is a good parenting technique. I think there is better, more efficient ways than hitting. Clearly, because what are we doing with hitting? No, don't. I think no, just don't. Just don't, you know? It might not affect every kid the same way. Some kids might turn out, you might be like, oh, I was hit as a child, I turned out fine. Okay, yeah. But that's you. Some other kids might react to that the same way. Some other kids, it might not physically, but mentally stunt them, right? And some kids have other mental issues that prevent them from understanding the hit is equivalent to what they did wrong, or stuff like that, you know? So it's always safer to just not hit your children. Not to mention, just don't, please. I'm not telling you how to parent your child, but like, I feel like there's better efficient ways to doing that, and I agree with Aizawa. Family counseling, they need it. They definitely need it, right? And definitely also think about it this way. Mitsuki is constantly yelling and hitting. What is Bakugo taking from this? Children at that young age imitate what they see from their parents. That's how they learn. They imitate their parents. So what does Bakugo see? A yelling and hitting Mitsuki. What does Bakugo do? Yell and hit. It's It's what it is. It's a learned behavior. Bakugo is learning this from his mother, right? So definitely, I agree with Aizawa there. There is better ways to discipline your child that is not that. I also love Aizawa calling Mitsuki a hypocrite. I love that. I also find it very interesting that he fails to mention that Inko is not potentially. Inko is dead. I don't know why I said potentially. Inko is dead and Hisashi is missing, right? Which I understand. Bakugo's there. I feel like if Bakugo wasn't there, he probably would have laid it out for them. I also feel like the meeting would have gone a whole lot better if Bakugo wasn't there. So yeah. As always, my raindrops, make sure to eat, sleep, drink water, take your meds. Have a wonderful day or night. Link to my Discord server and socials are down in the description. Subscribe to see more of my content, and thank you so much for watching.